everybody. Beep, 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 beep. How's my audio levels? Testing 1, 2, 3. This is close. This is far away. Yeah, I think we're all right. Okay, what we got going on today? Hello, Lucrom. Welcome to the show. Who else we got here tonight? Welcome, Geek Squad. Although I think you might still be just hosting. Okay. All right, let's paint some minis. There we go. All right, tonight we are still working on the Gagamba Gang. Got to get them done tonight. Tonight is painting. Tomorrow is session prep. Thursday's the game. So let's see about finishing these doodly dudes up. Lights. Camera. Action. I didn't get to wash this one guy off. Whoa! And it looks like my gluing of that one didn't work. Well, let's see if we can take care of that first, because that's got to get glued. There we go.
Are you gonna stream tonight?
I'm already streaming, darling. That would be my lovely wife. try this again. Let's get our metal plate. Magnet down. I'm going to try doing the glue on this side and the curing stuff on the other side, the accelerant. Give that a couple seconds. Hey, Lukam-chan. Welcome to the stream. Give that a second. All right. So we have 3 of these guys. I think this is, yeah, this is the one that needs to be washed. I'm not going to have time to do that tonight, so I think we're going to have to put him on hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll have 8 if I include him. I say we prioritize these other guys. Let's try to squeeze him in at the end. I think we're okay with that one now. All right. So we got the leather. I think I'm just going to get these guys, get these guys done tonight before I do anything else. And just work on getting them completely knocked out. So it looks like metal. And then washing and details. All right, let's hop to it. Let's put that away. All right, and then that is silver. We need some gunmetal gray. I've printed a planetar. Just finished about an hour or so on the resin printer, so that's exciting. I need to wash and get him cured, and then we can add him to the pile to paint. I'm excited to paint him. I've wanted a planetar for quite some time now. I still need to print a base for him because he's got like, he's flying, so he's got one of those like standy bases. You know what? I wonder if these are supposed to be metal. I'm gonna make the spikes metal. And then there's a little accoutrement. Probably being finicky. But there's like this little panel off of the side that I feel like shouldn't be made of wood. My hands are very shaky tonight. I'm not sure why. Alright, more metal. Let's get his belt buckle. I feel like ever since I touched this brush against that weird super glue that didn't dry, it has not wanted to hold a tip. It's just very fat at the front now. I think I'm gonna have to retire this one. New brush time. A lot better. It's got some rogue bristles, but I think we're gonna be all right. Alright, so we got his belt. Let's go ahead and get the bands on his quiver. There we go. We got a couple tiny buckles on his boots. Then we have that weird dagger in his boots. And he's got another one on his side. There we go. Hey, Isol. Welcome to the stream. Glad you're able to make it. Trying to get these Gagamba guys done in one night. I looked up the name, like the word Gagamba earlier, because I couldn't remember what language it was. And it was, I like that emoji. It's Filipino for spider. I couldn't remember which one I'd found it on. I just punched it into Google Translate. I went to Google Translate, hit spider, and started. I put the word spider in and just flipped through a bunch of them to a bunch of different languages to see if there was one that resonated. I'm going to be getting some more leather scraps tomorrow, so I'll be able to finish up that book, that character book. So that'll be nice to have that done. This metallic paint does not go on very slick. Or maybe it goes on too slick, like it's very chunky. It's actually not metallic. It's like gray, and then they put mica in it to give it the metallic look. But like it doesn't actually have like metal in it or anything like that. It went pretty fast for me too, although I must say time kind of crawled to a standstill when Nintendo did their Breath of the Wild, like when they did their E3 presentation with the Breath of the Wild news. Been riding that high all day. That one. I'm really excited for Metroid. I wasn't even thinking of Metroid, like a 2D Metroid. I was thinking maybe they might mention Prime 4, Metroid Prime 4, but I'm a big fan of the 2D Metroid games. And it's cool that they're finally making like a proper sequel instead of like prequels and side stories and stuff. They've been doing side stories for a while and prequels for a while with the Prime series. Metroid Fusion came out on the Game Boy Advance like forever ago. And that was like the latest game chronologically in the series until today. It's been like 19 years, I think is what they said. I didn't really care for Fusion. I need to play Metroid Fusion again. I remember disliking it though. Like it was a Metroid game and like I liked that it was a Metroid game. But I have a problem like just me personally with bodily harm. Like if somebody gets killed or you know shot or something like that, like I'm fine with that. Like I'm not fine with that. But like that doesn't bother me. But if somebody is like damaged, like maimed or you know something, I mean I don't want to you know violate any Twitch stuff, but like you know or if somebody is like handicapped or like you know messed up, I have a real problem with that. Like it just gets to me. And the whole thing with Metroid Fusion is that Samus, her suit gets infected with this virus thing that's on the this macro virus that's from SR388 that's like a known predator to the Metroids, and it like fuses the organic parts of her suit to her body, and it just like messes her body up, and she like becomes her armor or something to that. And I was like, oh man, I could not, like it just really messed with my head. I just did not like that at all. The new Breath of the Wild looks really great. I kind of wish they'd have shown more. Like I'm glad that they dropped a release date, or like at least a release year. It's probably going to be December of next year. which I'm cool with. I'm just glad that they showed something and gave like a definitive timeline. But the trailer looked really neat. It didn't really show off too much more, other than you know, like apparently it's gonna be like up in the sky, or like have some high in the sky parts. I'm super jazzed for it, but it really didn't reveal a whole lot. It did reveal I guess it did talk about or show that like his arm thing is going to be like the new Sheikah Slate. It's like where he gets his abilities and stuff from. There's that one. I'm pretty jazzed for Breath of the Wild 2, though. It is my jam. Alright, so this guy's got 2 knives. Still need to figure out what to do with the patches on these cloaks. What do y'all think? Do you think the patches will look better if they're darker or lighter? I think I want to stay away from colors. Like, I think they would try to... Like, if I think logistically, like, the patches should still try to stay dark and inconspicuous. So it wouldn't be, like, vibrant patches or anything like that. Okay. I need to do something for his little bags. And for his belt. I think the belt, I'm going to go dark. Let's give him a black belt. Let's give him like a tan. Make these bags like a tannish, dark tan. Yeah, I think that looks good. And maybe we can do like the little stitchings on his shirt in that color too. All right, let's get some black on his belt. There we go. I think we're done with him. We just need to paint the base and do some washes. The patches. So if you look at the back of him, sorry, Luca, I'm just looking at this. The cloak has like these little patchwork things where it's been worn through. It's like even goes through right there. It's been worn through, and they patched them up because they're just bandits, you know. They're not like a well-funded militia or something. Yeah, so I'm just thinking I need to patch those up. But I don't know if I should make them darker than the cape or lighter. I like his little hatchet that he has. He's got this chain around his neck too. I really like the sculpts of these guys here. The ones just holding the crossbows are kind of generic with these guys, like the dwarf and the tiefling and the one with the daggers and the bow. They've got character. They've got personality. Okay, let's get the bottom of his hatchet. It looks like it's got a little metal pommel on the bottom. Little belt buckle right under his tubby tummy. Alright. What else we got? We got any metal on this dude? Yeah, he's got a scabbard. We'll just do the handle of it. Trying to remember what we decided to do with her. It's going to be red skin. But I can't remember what we were going to do with the van braces and the boots. What if we did something crazy? What if we put leather on those and then put a red wash on top of them? Kind of make them like a reddish leather. Never done that before. I'm kind of curious to see what it would look like. Gonna do it. It's the worst that can happen. Paint over it. I hope this looks cool. I think it'll look good. I have used and experimented with washes on top of different colored paints before, but I've never used one. I don't think I've ever used one on top of a contrast paint, because contrast paint kind of has a wash built into it. we go. Touch up a little bit of this bone white. There we go. Let's take some of this dark tan. Let's use it for the scabbard. Hey, ANMCC. Welcome to the chat. Wild thing, I am not. I am not a wild thing. One day I would like to be a wild thing. But I am feeling froggy. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put this red on here. See, how bright do we want her skin? I normally don't go for it, but I'm thinking going for the bloody red. Normally I go with the warmer brick red. So let's see how this goes. Already is starting to look very light. Hopefully it dries darker. Tieflings are probably my favorite D&D race. I really like them. I've played a couple different tieflings. I like how they're a social stigma and that they have like something to prove. You know what they say about tieflings. One's an oddity, two's a curiosity, and three's a curse. This looks terrible. Looks like I'm spraying ketchup all over this thing. It just does not cast any shadow at all. It's definitely going to need a wash before I pass final judgment on it. I hope they bring the hookshot back in Breath of the Wild 2. Flying around between islands in the sky would be really fun with a hookshot. I hope they bring back, like, regular dungeon items. I love Breath of the Wild, but I really miss the items. I was kind of surprised when they collapsed all of the items in Breath of the Wild into the Sheikah Slate. Like, I know they did that for, like, design reasons, where if they can give you all of the items up front, then no matter where you roam in the world, you'll never run into a puzzle that you're ill-equipped for. Because if they're not wanting to control, you know, what dungeon you're in first and stuff, then they can't guarantee you have the items to get through it, and they don't want people to get stuck and frustrated. That's just like a common developer philosophy, and that's fine. But I felt like they already solved that problem with A Link Between Worlds. And A Link Between Worlds, there was like a little shop, and you rented the items, and if you died, the items went back to the shopkeeper, and you'd have to go rent them again. And then eventually you could save up enough rupees to just buy them straight up. And if you bought them, then you could like upgrade them, so it was like an incentive to buy them. So I felt like that would have been great. You know, you could have ran into a dungeon or a weird puzzle or something and been like, well, I don't have the thing. Maybe we'll go back to the item shop and get an item and then come back here and try it out with the item. I thought that would have been a really, like, I figured that's the way they were going to go forward with Breath of the Wild, but apparently they had other plans. Nintendo's also pretty well known for like coming up with an angle, a twist, a gimmick, or whatever you want to call it, for Zelda games, and then like using it to good effect and then never using it again. Like changing into a wolf. Never used it again. They used it in one. Changing in, or like flying around on a loft wing. Never use it again. Not riding around in trains anymore. This is going to be challenging getting down in here. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. Where's my zoom button? I think my zoom button on my camera moved, so I'll just bring it up closer. Hard to get in there. Here we go. I think she turned out okay. It'll look better once it's got a wash on it. What about her hair? Maybe black? Like a jet black? think I'm gonna have to do some dry brushing on her hair, because a wash really isn't gonna do anything to make shadows with all this pitch black on here. Yeah, that looks good. I think that looks really cool. Alright, now I need the red on her hands. I need to figure out what to paint this spell effect with. Maybe like a purple. Purple might be fun. Maybe a blue. Maybe like a bright yellow. Yeah, I kind of think a bright yellow would be neat. Kind of keep it on brand with the red, but still bright and distinct enough. Let's go with sun yellow. Yellow is notoriously bad for covering. Like, I'm gonna have to probably put a couple coats on this thing just to get it to look yellow. The black is really gonna shine through, and this thing needs to be glowing. I probably should have put like a white on top of it first. Like, it's already white on top from the zenithal highlight, but I don't think that really works with spell effects, because the spell effects are their own light source. And if anything, I should probably like dry brush some of this yellow like around on her face and on her blouse to make it look like it's casting light onto the rest of her body. I don't think it looks too bad like ketchup and mustard. Let's put her in front of the fan. I'm ready to get one of these done, and I'm thinking it's gonna be him. Let's drop a wash on him. Let's go Seraphim Sepia on the white. Let's go Null Noil on the dark browns. Agrax Earthshade on the light browns. And then we were going to go Reikland Flesh Shade on the skin, even though there isn't that much. Oh, I need to do something with these patches. I think I'm just going to dry brush them. I think I'm going to leave them the same color and just dry brush them to give them some highlight. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so let's do the Seraphim Sepia first. So I was talking a bit with the party tonight, and it looks like 2 of my players are not going to be there in the game Thursday. So I'm going to have to figure out how to rebalance that. I'm also going to have to figure out what to do about them. I might just have the party just say, hey, here are their character sheets. You guys control them. Because they were like all holding weapons, getting ready to fight. That's not really a good spot for me to say, oh, they duck out the back alley and leave. Like they're not going to do that. They're going to fight. So I might just make them play their characters. As a DM, I already have enough to keep track of. I don't want to have to keep track of other characters if I can help it. There's ways around it. A lot of times you can just have the player fade into the background. Like they're there. The character is there, but they're just like not doing anything. It's kind of like how in like episodes of a show with a very large cast, like that character's there, they're around, they're doing stuff. It's just not an episode about them, so you don't see much of them. And it might sound weird, like why wouldn't they say anything if they're there? But really, it, like, in reality and actually playing it out, it really doesn't end up being weird. It's like everybody knows, and it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna use up what's on my brush here. Alright. Next is our Agrax Earthshade. This is for our medium leathers. Let's see how it looks on the boots. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Man, the sculpts on these guys are just so much better. Print just comes out so much more smooth. good. Let's put some black on his cape. Man, I love painting minis. So relaxing. Ooh. I should make this dwarf a dwagar. That would be... That could be interesting. I don't know if I know how to paint a dwagar. I'll have to look up a picture. this guy. Let's put some flesh on his bones. I think he's done. Actually. There we go. Let's look up a Dwegar real quick. So there's the official 5e one. Looks like they're kind of purpley. Okay, I can go with it. Kind of a lavendery purpley. Do I need to be aware of anything stat-wise for having a Dwegar? Alright. Dwagar have superior dark vision. Dark academic vision, as you can see, 120 feet. Dwagar resilience, you have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. You also have advantage on saving throws against illusions and being charmed or paralyzed. Dwarven combat training. They do have sunlight sensitivity. Dwagar magic. 3rd level they can cast enlarge, reduce. 5th level they can cast invisibility. Interesting. Speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor. Nah, I think I'm gonna go regular dwarf. Although he would make a cool Dwagar. I just don't want him to have disadvantage on his attacks. It's really the big takeaway. I'm gonna try to dilute down some white and just kind of lighten up the underside of these skin areas so they're not so dark. Let's see how that works. That one's still drying. Yeah, well, I'm getting tired. It's been a long day. Okay. Ooh, takes a long time to paint a batch of bandits. Take a sip. Carrollsburg Crimson. It's getting a little toasty in here. Yeah, they like their weird names. Nullnoil, Carrollsburg Crimson, Reichland Flesh Shade. Let's see how this works on the leather. It's just kind of turning it black. Maybe it's giving it a little bit of a tint. Yeah, actually, that's not bad. It's not going to draw too much attention, but, you know, they're boots. They're not really supposed to draw too incredibly much attention. Citadel really does love their fantasy themed paint names. I don't have any like regular Game Workshop Citadel's paints. I've heard they're pretty good. That's what a lot of folks use. I've got these contrast paints, but like that's it. Wonder if I should try some. Wonder if they have a good blue. I'm a sucker for a good blue. It's hard to find a really good, deep, solid blue. My favorite paint name. Ooh. Oh no. I have to think about that. Let me finish up washing this red. We'll take a look at the Games Workshop ones. The apple barrel paints I have are pretty generic colors, and I didn't transfer the labels to these bottles because I didn't use up the entire bottle. Like I've got the bottles sitting somewhere else, so that I can refill these little guys with it when I need to. So I don't know the names of the paint colors for the apple barrel ones. You know what? I'm gonna do this Carosberg Crimson on the hair. Give it like a dark reddish shadow. Wonder if that'll look good. Nuln Oil is a fun name. Like it's one that like sticks in my head a lot, and it's the black wash. It's not a paint name, but it's just very unique. N-U-L-N, Nuln Oil. Well, I think she turned out okay. Oop, I didn't do the van braces. How about you, Ice? Do you have a favorite paint name? Or do you even do painting? I don't know if we've ever talked about that. Let's see, we've got bronze flesh tone, bloody red, leather brown, ooh, leather brown, orange fire, pasty brown, sun yellow, bone white. This one's goblin green, dead white, dark green, ultramarine blue. The worst, like I don't like this blue at all. Stonewall gray, black, gunmetal, polished gold, and silver. Oh, here's one. So I actually have a technical paint from Citadel. And I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's definitely unique. It's like Null Noil. It sticks out there. It's called Blood for the Blood God. And oh boy, does it actually look like blood. Like it's a technical paint, which means that it's more of like an effect. Like instead of just a brown, you could have a technical paint that simulates the texture of mud. And I have some orcs that I painted, and then I put yeah, very edgy. Pun not intended. I put it all over the edges of their weapons, and it's not solid. Like it's got some translucency to it, but it's weird in its texture because it's almost like goopy. I don't know. It's like, I guess the best way to describe it is like it's bloody. But you can do things like I took a paintbrush, one of these brushes here, and I cut the tip off of it, one of my regular number 8 brushes. So it's kind of got like this butch haircut. You dip that in a little blood for the blood god, and you go like this. And it puts little blood spatter speckles on things. So I've got that like on all these orcs all along their weapons, just like dripped along there, and then I'll like spatter it and spray it like on themselves, and it looks like they've been in the middle of battle. Kind of neato. All of these paints here are Vallejo, and they have just kind of like normal paint sounding names, but the Citadel ones, they do like the crazy fun names, like Blood for the Blood God and Ochre Jelly. Blue Raspberry, Wild Berry Zinger. Those aren't real names, real paint names. One of those is the Celestial Seasonings tea. I wish I had a game store that was like close by that I could peruse for paints, but alas, I do not. End up having to get this stuff from Walmart with the Apple Barrel stuff, or like on Amazon or something. I do like to hit up game shops when I'm in the area of one. I think we're ready to put some skin on him. I think I'm also ready to get some brown in his beard. Painting minis is very therapeutic, but I tell you what, having to do a whole bunch on a deadline, not as fun. I mean, it's still fun, but having deadlines isn't fun. But deadlines do keep me productive. I work a lot better under a deadline. There we go. There's a dwarven. There's a dwarven beard if I had ever seen one. Alright. Put it in front of the fan. Clean our brush off. Drop the whole brush in the water. My elbow's starting to hurt. I wonder if I should put a little elbow rest down or something. Let's try that. Alright, so her. A little bit too much red down in there. I think she's just river details. Normally, fire is darker on the outside, and at the inside of it is where it's burning the brightest. But I'm thinking this is more of like a magical effect than it is fire. So I'm going to start with like the deeper yellow in the middle, and build it up to white at the tips. Might be a simple, easy way to get a neat looking effect. Let's get some more. Actually, you know what? Let's get some pearlescent white. Put some shiny shine on this guy. No, not you. Get out of there. This pearlescent white is actually really, really handy. It's just straight up white with the formica in it. And it's good for like making any kind of paint metallic. You could like toss it in with some red and make some red metallic, or you know, green or blue or whatever you want. And I'm just going to rake this across the top of these. There we go. Just a little bit of edge highlighting. Bring some light into this. Okay. Let's take Mr. Dwarf. Let's put some Reikland Flesh Shade on them. I decided not to go with the Dwagar. I think it's a cool concept, but I'll do something. I'll do Dwagar some other time. Really, I don't know a lot of things about the Dwagar. I know that they're like deep, deep in the earth dwarves, and I know that they've been like messed with by the Mind Flayers. What I don't know... Oh no, I didn't want to do this. Oh well. I already put it down, so I'll commit to it, and I'll put the other stuff on top. I don't know how well the Dwagar get along with the Drow, so I don't know if having a Dwagar on the Gagamba Gang would work well with having them, you know, working for the Black Spider. I feel like I need to research that some more. Also, if they're going to be fighting them during the day, and Dwagar have sunlight sensitivity like Drow, which means that all of his attacks are going to be at disadvantage. And if this fight they're going Nova on the players are going Nova on them, they're just going to decimate these guys. And I want them to be not decimated. I want them to be cool and dangerous and a fun challenge. Yeah, they have disadvantage in daylight because they live underground, and the same thing is with the Drow. But, like, they have superior dark vision, which means they can see out to 120 feet in pitch black as if it were daylight. Like, it's nuts. They can just see forever underground. Which is really bad if they're hunting you in the Underdark. Yeah, so it's kind of like it's a little bit of a give and take. Really good in the other Underdark, not so great in the surface, which is another reason why the Black Spider wants to remove the sun, so that he can actually set up a Drow kingdom on the surface, not have all that sunlight sensitivity. Can't have sunlight sensitivity if you don't have a sun. Hoodoo, I forgot a little bit on the back of his head. I've been really beefing it with the, like, missing different spots. There've been a number of times where I, like, came back and there's just spots that dried through on the cape, and they're just, like, little white dots everywhere. Weird. I'm normally much more thorough. Alright. So do I like that for the skin? It's kind of light. Let's see, this guy. Let's do a little dry brushing on his cape and call him done. And let's do it with this dark tan. Here we go. Let's get a little black ground on his base. We'll call him done. There we go. It's one down. I think that dry brushing really helped on the cape too. I'm pretty excited to paint the Planetar. I think I'm probably going to do him Thursday. If I can get his stand printed. His little base. Or his big base, rather. I really want to go grab him, pop him off his supports and get him curing, but because he's just sitting on my print bed right now. What I'd like to do is get my setup in here fixed up. I want to make it some extra table space over there so that I can have my 3D printer in here. have it kind of going in the background. And I can show off like the wash and cure and clean up process, and like get the whole thing. That way you guys can see it from getting the model to supporting it to having it printing to popping it off the supports and curing and clean up, and just the whole process in one go. Turned out really good. He turned out really, really good too, which is why I'm so excited about it. I think I'm going to leave this dwarf the way he is. Alright, so it looks like I... Did I wash his belly? Yeah, I washed him. I need to put a wash on his beard. Let's do Agrax Earthshade. Planetars are cool. Planetar? Planetar? But I'll be using that for Drew. Drew the half-orc paladin. When he hits level 3 and has to swear his oath. He's literally going to have to swear his oath and like to the deity of his choice or whatever, and he's going to be measured by the planetar servant of his deity to see if he is worthy to follow. And so I'd like to have a mini there for it so it can be like an intimidating presence. There we go. Now I need to get some Null Oil on him. Once that dries, he'll be done. Kind of tired of painting humanoids, although I'm going to be painting a planetar, and they're kind of humanoids. But I painted all those party members, and now I got all these gang members here. I'm kind of ready to start on some monsters. I think her eyes are going to be solid black. While we're waiting on the others, let's go ahead and dry brush her some. So dry brushing is great for adding some quick highlights, but it does make them look dusty. And there's a secondary problem with it. Since I have a cheaper resin printer, I've got a Photon Zero, which prints the same kind of resin. It's just as like strong, but it's got a smaller print base, so you can't print like really big minis, and you can also see the layer lines. Like most resin printed minis, like you might be able to see like right there, those little like curves. You can see the layer lines, and when you dry brush with that, it grabs all of the highlights off of those layer lines, and it doesn't look as great. But it kind of isn't a problem for me. Like I don't love it, but it's like on all of my minis, so it's like the look is at least consistent. But that's one of the reasons why I would like to get a better quality resin printer. The resolution would be much higher, and I wouldn't get all those layer lines. But if you're thinking of getting into resin printing, the Photon Zero is actually a really great entry-level resin printer. So you might be able to sand it off. Also, welcome to the stream, Wing Badger Gaming. You might be able to sand it off, but with minis this small, I mean that's going to be incredibly tedious because it's all over the place. It's across the entire surface of the mini, and it's really not going to be worth the time. Thanks for popping in the stream. We're painting bandits tonight. We're going through I'm painting painting the monster manual from beginning to end, and I'm also going through the Lost Mines of Phandelver with my D&D group, and I didn't have any bandits yet, or ruffians is what these ones are. So I'm painting some up for my Thursday game. Hope to be finishing them tonight. This guy is done. So we're gonna put him. Where should we put him? Let's put him right there. Let's get that out of the way. Make that the done pile. Yeah, everybody's got a gray horde, a gray pile. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I've got a ton of them. This is the platter of monsters that one of the platters that I'm working on. I've also I recently printed an Ankylosaurus, and got a Gynosphinx and a Androsphinx that I'm doing too. But I'm about 200 and something in out of like 600. Primarian. Nice. That's clever. I like that. I don't really get fancy with the painting, as you can probably see with these. I like them to look good. But table ready is what I shoot for. There's a lot of detail that I'll scrub over, because in my experience my players aren't going to care, and even if they did care, they're probably not even going to notice. And if you paint them all at the same table ready standard, then they all have a consistent look to them and they match. It's only when something looks like really good that it stands out from the rest of them and makes the rest of them look bad. So So yeah, planning to do the whole monster manual. I've got a bunch, but it's a pretty chill process. I also print all of these. I think I might have 3 or 4 that were given to me, like a couple skeletons or something like that. But for the most part, I paint my own and print my own. It's just nice and chill and relaxing. This is my downtime away from a screen. I work in IT, and so I'm like in front of a screen all day long. And aside from the occasional looking up at chat and seeing your wonderful, wonderful usernames out there, it's a way for me to wind down and not have to look in front of look at a screen during the day. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on the cape. But it's pretty easy painting. Painting isn't complicated. It can be complicated. Like, it has a very high ceiling. You can go up in skill forever and ever and ever. But it doesn't take much to make it look really good. I've already talked with Ice about this before. But these paints that I use here, like all of this bottom row are just apple barrel paints that I got from Walmart for like 99 cents. And I used those for a long time before I actually got some Vallejo mini paints. What made me want to start painting minis? So my friend, my coworker and friend Ike, he plays Warhammer and other games, and like Blood Bowl, and like he goes to a friendly local game store and plays and like tries to get competitive too, and it's just kind of like his thing. He kind of paints for the same reason. It's like his chill time and whatnot. And I saw him painting some stuff, and I was like, you know what, that looks really cool, but it looks incredibly intimidating. Like I've worked as a graphic artist in the past, and so I know about art and color theory and all of that stuff, but it just looked really intimidating, and I was like, I don't even know where to start, man. And that was about when I got into playing Dungeons and Dragons at work, and he had us pick out minis for our characters. And so I scrounged around online. It's actually this guy here. This is my very first mini. Ike actually printed this, and I painted it later. It's like one of the first ones I painted. His name's Malabar Bruve. He's a old sailor, warlock. But yeah, he like came to the table and was like, "Hey guys, this is Dungeons and Dragons." Because I'd only like heard the Adventure Zone, hadn't actually played it in person. I'd played like some form of a Pokemon one before, but this was like my first time as a player. And so he set it down and threw out the minis on the table, and I was like, this is really cool. And so he like started pulling out bandits and other stuff, and goblins and bugbears and all the stuff that we were encountering. And I just fell in love with it. It's so cool to have in a digital world where you have apps on your phone and you have video games, and it's wonderful and delightful to have something tangible in your hand, and then to be able to connect that mental world with something tangible. And my battery just went out on my little USB light. So let me swap out my spare battery. Favorite in-game story with my first character. And a moment that hooked me on D&D. So I've had a fascination with D&D for a very long time, but I never really knew how it worked. Never knew how to get into it. because it's one of the it's like a D&D is like a tradition. You know, you kind of need somebody to show you how it works. It's hard to explain what D&D is. But what hooked me was I love JRPGs. I love Final Fantasy. Maybe not so much nowadays, but like as a kid, like with the Super Nintendo, way into JRPGs. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI. Man, so many good ones. Lufia 2. All the Tactics Ogre games, like Let Us Cling Together. Just love that kind of fantasy storytelling. But one of the things that I've always felt that it lacked was options. You know, you have a very linear story, and just the ability to make your own choices and to mold the world after your own design is just like that's the holy grail of JRPGs. And that was what hooked me when I went to a town and talked to people just about regular stuff and came back, and those people had like progressed on with their lives and they remembered my character and, you know, had their own stuff that I could help out with and built like real relationships with and stuff. Like that was like I was in. That's fantastic. Favorite character or in-game moment with my first character. Malabar had I kind of went overboard with his past. He was a pirate. It's like the players knew him, and my party knew him as a merchant, and because he was like a sailor, and I kind of borrowed. If you're familiar with Critical Role, I kind of borrowed a little bit of inspiration from Ford, where he had a warlock pact that was kind of thrust upon him. You know, he like crashed into the sea, had this orb thing that he found, and ended up forming this pact with this deep old one, and kind of doesn't know what's going on with it, and is a little sketch about the legitimacy of this person that he's made a pact with. Might even want to get out of it, you know, kind of like Ford did with the Wild Mother. So I heavily borrowed from that, but anyway, I'm digressing. So the players knew him as like a sailor. He was like a merchant sailor that like shipwrecked on this island that the adventure took place on. But he was a former pirate, and he's really old. He's like I forget what the Loxodon lifespan is, but he's kind of older, which is why he started over at level 1 as a warlock instead of like a high level fighter. So he has a lot of history and like experience adventuring wise, but he you know, wasn't very capable in his class anymore. Well, in his pirating days, he was like a notoriously very evil guy, and had a bit of a change of heart moment of just seeing the ruin that he caused and like breaking down the calluses of his heart. I pulled that from, there was a Octopath Traveler, I believe it was the merchant girl's storyline, where she meets this sailor, this merchant ship guy, who talked about in his past that he had a quarrel with a friend of his, like another pirate friend, and they'd fought and like raced through a storm, and when they made it out the other side, his friend had died, and like the whole point of the race was that the winner could take the other person's most treasured possession, and his friend's most treasured possession was like some gift that he had given him. Anyway, it was like that like broke him. And so Malabar had like a similar thing where in his bad days, he took pride in his violence and his pirating, and performed what he called his blood deeds as a way of building intimidation as a pirate and his reputation as a pirate. He would do just these heinous acts of evil, like he found, like, one of the ships that he had defeated, there were two brothers, and he forced them to fight to the death just for his amusement, just so that he could break the spirit of one of these brothers. Another was he kidnapped a bunch of nobles' children and like tortured them or did something terrible. I can't remember off the top of my head, but just these really, really bad stuff. So after he gets this change of heart, his kind of B plot, like, there's the story that's going on, but his B plot was trying to recompense for his blood deeds. And for every blood deed that he would do, he would tattoo on his body, like, the scenery of that deed. So, like, these children shackled in chains, and these two brothers fighting, and this, that, and the other. And kind of the B plot of Malabar's story was that he would be looking for opportunities to do a good that he considered equal or greater to the heinous acts that he'd committed. And one of them ended up being where he ended up rescuing a bunch of orphans, and actually starting, like, an orphanage for them. The DM was kind of confused. He wasn't super familiar with, like, how backstories worked and stuff, and, like, integrating that into the story. But we had rescued these orphans that we had found in a goblin cave. I think they were just there for flavor. But Malabar just latched onto these kids and was like, this is his chance, like, almost crying. This is his chance to maybe pay back, maybe recompense for his sins. And so he just latched onto these kids and did everything that he could for them. And I kind of annoyed the DM a little bit, but, like, in my mind, Malabar was like, I don't care what these goblins are doing anymore. Like the reason that we came in here for treasure or whatever, these kids are my life right now. And so, like, he's in this town called Hollow Bottom. Like, the campaign kind of came to an end a little early. It didn't get to go all the way through the story. I think we made it like level 5 or 6, something like that. But so Malabar's at that orphanage, or at that town, and he's, like, set up a house and is, like, taking care of all these kids. And that's not, like, super crazy Lord of the Rings fantasy or whatever, but I don't know, it was just really meaningful to have this really real moment of him being this terrible pirate who's, like, and, like, this adult that is terrible with kids. He's never had kids or whatever, just learning to be this big, clumsy old elephant man, taking care of these kids and doing everything that he can to ensure that they have a good life. Yeah, I like it when characters have real growth moments like that too. It doesn't happen very often. Like you really have to work for it. It's like a collaboration between the player and the DM. Yeah, no problem. That's what I'm here for. I love talking about D&D. I could talk about D&D all day long. Oh my! I don't think I'm gonna finish these guys tonight. I am running out of time. Alright, these two are done. Calling them done. I'm going to go ahead and dry brush this one real quick. Something that I've learned in dungeon mastering, because I've played a little and I've DM'd a lot. And in my time as a player, the people that have dungeon mastered for me, I've got nothing against them, and I like them, and I love them, and they're great folk. But they were very interested in telling their story as a DM, like their story, and that's kind of okay. Like, it's okay, but in my opinion, a dungeon master doesn't tell the story. They set up the story for the players. The players are the heroes. The dungeon master takes those heroes and puts them in terrible, impossible situations. And then those heroes, like heroes do, work to get themselves out of trouble and to save the world. And like the last two campaigns that I was as a player in, it was really kind of like they had this cool setting and this cool plot and everything like that, and they really wanted the players to go through this story and do this thing, but it wasn't about the players. It was about the cool setting and the cool campaign and stuff. And ever since I've DM'd, like, I've tried it kind of both ways. Like, the first one, it started off as like a bit of, hey, check out this cool, I made a cool world in the plane of air with floating islands and airships, because Final Fantasy, I mean, of course it's going to have like floating islands and airships. And I got into it, and the players were just kind of like, it was my family game with my kids and my wife, and they were just kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's neat, that's a neat set piece. And they didn't know what they were doing as players, and I was like, I got nothing against them, and I'm glad they're playing with me, but they really don't care about this as much as I do. And I got to thinking, I was like, what can I do to make them care about this? And then that's when I got introduced to Sly Flourish, who is criminally underfollowed on YouTube. You should check him out. He writes a book called Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is like my D&D DMing Bible. And one of the first things he says in his book is that the players, they don't care as much as dungeon masters would like. And that's okay. That's actually good. They need to care about the players. They need to care about the hero. And the way that you make players care about the world is you make the world matter to the players. You make it matter to the heroes. You don't make it cool. You don't make it like a floating island or whatever. You make it matter to them. If they're like most people nowadays and they care more about their pets than they do about the people around them, give them a dog. They're walking through the town. They find a puppy that's eating scraps, or like trying, that's like too small to get up into the trash can to eat, and it's like, and it looks all emaciated or whatever. They're gonna fall in love with that dog, and then you make people kick the dog. You know, like, if you want to introduce a villain, or like people that are evil or whatever, when they go into town, make that person hate dogs. Oh man, your players will hate them. They'll hate them so bad. If there's a good person, like good King, I don't know, Winslet or whatever, and the players are really suspicious about this king or whatever, the king, when they walks in and the puppy runs up and it's just like, and the guards are like, oh man, how disrespectful of the king's throne room or whatever, and make the king get off of his throne, and he gets down and he puts his hand out and the puppy goes to him, and then he has like this little interaction with your players. Will trust that king. Absolutely. Make them care about it. Like, it's a little bit of extra work as the dungeon master, but it can be done, and when you pull it off, it's pretty cool. But yeah, like, your games need to revolve around the players, because they are the heroes and it should revolve around them. So when I'm DMing, I really try my best to make the players the center of the game. When anything happens, I always think of like, well, what's the player doing? What have they been caring about lately? How have they been interacting with it, with the world and with the game and stuff? And what can I do to hook them in? With the one of my players is a tiefling warlock. Never played Dungeons and Dragons before. He picked the pre-generated character sheet. He didn't know that tieflings were part devil, and he didn't know that warlocks, especially this pre-generated one that had like a pact to the fiend, made a bargain with the devil to get his power. He just was like, okay, I'll take this one. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna make this about you. And so at the beginning of the story, we had a spot where he saw this shadowy figure in the distance, and nobody else could see it. And I was like, his patrons come in to say, hey, it's time we put this deal in writing. And so he like fired off an eldritch blast at this shadow because he was freaking out and didn't really know everything up to that point had just been a monster. And so I made the shadow creature just like envelop him in a cloak and disappear, and he was gone the rest of the session. And everybody was like, well, what happened to him? Because they're like all brand new D&D players. And I'm like, you guys don't know, you're not there. And that just kind of blew their mind. And they were like, well, I guess his name's Jack. He was like, well, I guess I'm dead or something. I was like, well, we'll see. And so the next session, I had him, I decided that his patron was going to be Asmodeus. And that I was going to really lean into the corporate businessy side of devils and say that Jack, this tiefling, was like an intern, and that he had lent him, Asmodeus had lent him his powers as like a loner, just like to test and say, hey, maybe this might be something that you're interested. Because devils, that they want to get you in. So sure, I mean, if you get like, it's totally sounds like a devilish thing to do. 14-day free trial, no risks, but you're gonna get hooked on it because it's some pretty cool magic stuff. You come back after 14 days of magic and be like, okay, well, you can walk away if you want to. You can go back to being a normal peasant if you want to, or you can sign this contract. And so we had this little, like all the rest of the players, they just kind of sat around the table and watched, and they were just like glued as Jack and I had this thing about this devil and this tiefling like bargaining this contract for his class. Like it's part of his class. Like he's level 1. You're supposed to just like have this class. You're just supposed to have a class, but it's like that's not fun. There's nothing interesting about that. Hey, thanks for the raid, guys. Welcome, FSkater95. We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So anyway, I made this session where where this level 1 warlock had this like business encounter. I even made a Spotify playlist with some like elevator jazz music that was like really distasteful and annoying, but like delightfully evil, kind of like in like Earthworm Jim, the Planet of Heck, that plays elevator music all the time, evil sort of way. And yeah, we went back and forth, and I had a contract. I gave him a piece of paper, and it was like, here's your contract, and it had like all these clauses in it that I'd written out. I made this thing where his pact, I actually got the idea from Matt Mercer with Percy, how he had gotten that contract from that devil, where he could unlock different clauses, so that if he delved into this, like he could get a little bit of extra something. He could get an extra spell slot, which is huge for a warlock, if he just did a random evil thing per day, something like that, like kick a puppy. It's got to be, doesn't matter. If he did that, then he could get an extra spell slot. If he did, if he like would betray a party member every once in a while, he could get +1 to his charisma or something like. I balanced it out. And but he doesn't have to. He can just stay a warlock. But just trying to seed in this idea of this devil's trying to corrupt him, and yeah, filling their evil quota. Yeah, it was super fun, and he was like totally into it, and he was like, man, this is amazing, this is great. And it was super duper fun, and I think he felt important because it was all about him. It wasn't about the devil. It wasn't about the contract. If I would have just had a little monologue about devils are evil, devils are bad, the devils want to destroy your soul, devils like to trick people into doing contracts. If I'd have just said something like that, he wouldn't have cared. He would have been, oh, D&D is a weird whatever. But since it was him, oh, that's when he cared about it. There we go. Get that paint on there. Yeah, so players care about themselves, and that's okay. And that's, I think, the way it should be. Yeah, scrounging around. Well, this is Asmodeus. He is very high up there. He's not going to be scrounging around. And I haven't figured out exactly what Asmodeus is up to yet, because that's kind of another secret of dungeon mastering. You don't want to lay all of your cards on the table yet. You want to give room to breathe, so that if something comes up in the story, you can hook that in and make it a reason. But Jack, the player that was playing this tiefling, his wife made him a mini on Hero Forge. I don't have it with me. I gave it to them because she and he were both playing tieflings. And bless her heart, she makes her tiefling, this tiefling sorcerer, and sends me the model, and I'm looking it over, and I'm like, this tiefling has 2 tails. Like what's up with that? Like, did you read a thing in a book? So I was asking her, I was like, did you read a thing in a book? She's like, no, I just thought it was cool. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, 2 tails, that's kind of weird. You know, maybe we can come up with something for that, but, you know, why not? It's not really going to break anything, and they're not prehensile tails or anything. And then she finishes Jack, the warlock tiefling, sends his mini to me. He's got 9 tails. Gives the dude 9 tails. Looks like a straight up Pokemon. Or like I've been referring to him as the Warlock Kyuubi from Naruto. 9 tails, and they're just like all over the place. And I was like, okay, well that's more than 2. That's a little odd, you know, typical, not your typical tiefling. And then later she was like, oh well, you know, I heard that in D&D there's like 9 layers to hell, and I was thinking 9 tails, or whatever. That I thought that was cool, and I was like, okay, well, that's not traditional, but let's make this game about you and not about me. And so I determined that Asmodeus, for some reason, there's something odd about this tiefling's tails, and that they're tied to the 9 layers of hell somehow, and he wants them. And so each of these clauses in the pact that he can unlock, it requires him to do a bad thing, but he has to sacrifice one of his tails to do it as well. So Asmodeus gets one of his tails and gets to corrupt him a little bit and gives him some powerful magic in exchange. And without getting into it incredibly, because I've already talked about it before, Ice, you probably remember this part about the cycle, that they're kind of going through this time cycle. That the scene at the end of the game that happened at the beginning of the game, where the party was like all decimated before their boss, before the big bad guy. Jack only had 1 tail left. And I specifically said that he only had 1 tail left, so kind of setting the precedent, now that they know what's going on with the tails, that things got so crazy that he cashed in all of his tails to try to beat this thing, and still died. For those of you just joining, I did a thing where I tried to make the Lost Mines of Phandelver exciting. It's a traditionally very traditional and boring D&D. Like, it's just very standard D&D adventure, and I wanted to hook them into it. And so what I did was I started them at the end of the adventure, and had them be dropped into like this scenario, really more of a monologue, just to kind of set up the bad guy, where they had been beaten and bruised, and a whole bunch of them had been killed, and the bad guy, the Black Spider, he is trying to, in this campaign, and like my edit of it, he's trying to create a wand of wishes so that he can destroy the sun and create a drow empire on the surface of the planet. And so at the beginning of this game, I'm describing the scene where like their half orc is like missing an arm, and Jack only has one tail left, and like a couple of the parties were like party members were disintegrated. And then the Black Spider, he holds the wand up that he's finally created, and he starts to cast wish. And Gundren Rockseeker, who's going to be in the story too, he's a dwarf. He gets up there, wrestles the wand away from him, pulls it out of his hand, and says, "I wish my friends had another chance." And it resets the game all the way back to the first session, and they're level 1. And that was kind of like a way to introduce the bad guy, to introduce the threat and the danger. It totally worked. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it totally hooked the players, and they're loving it. But it was interesting to see them draw the connection between Jack only having one tail and him finally figuring out about the contract and stuff. It was kind of neat. That also makes me wonder what they're going to do with that wand if they ever find it. If we ever play long enough for them to get to the end. I need to get some washes on this girl. D&D is so stinking fun. Thank you guys for raiding and joining in on the party. I'm going to be on for about another 15 more minutes. I typically stop at midnight. I might go a little later. I'm trying to get these bandits done. Thank you. I'm glad it's nice to listen. Some people have been saying that I have a very soothing voice. I don't see it, but, you know, most people don't like their own voice anyway. But I paint D&D minis. I've been playing D&D for about 4 or 5 years and painting for about a year or two. I don't go for super high quality. I go for what I call table ready. If I can get 2 or 3 colors on them, a nice wash, maybe a little dry brushing, then it's good enough for the table. It's good enough to look nice when held at arm's length. And yeah. So one of my big goals right now has been to thanks. I appreciate the reassurance. One of the big projects that I'm doing right now is I'm trying to paint the entire monster manual. If I can do that, then I'll probably end up going on to paint everything in like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and what's the other one? Volo's Guide to Monsters. Because I'd like one or a few of every mini. Right now, my list is like, I have a spreadsheet. It's like 600 and something minis. There's only like 450, I think, in the monster manual. But like, you have instances where you got a goblin. Well, that's one. But I want like 8 of them, so I can have like a squad of goblins that like, hop in and mess with dudes. So I'm actually painting more than the kinds of monsters. And I'm about 250 something in out of like 600. So I've been making some decent progress. And about a month ago, I decided, you know what? I've been painting all of these minis just by myself. And I used to hang out on Discord with some friends, and then they'd kind of watch it a little bit, and that was fun. But they wouldn't be able to do it all the time because they're busy. And I was like, if I paint and just stream this online, maybe I'll get to hang out with some more folks. I'm not trying to build a huge following or anything like that. I'm just kind of want some company while I paint the minis. And I really like talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I really think that it's the most fun that you can have with your brain. It's the penultimate, in my opinion. once I finally once it finally clicked and I like got Dungeons and Dragons, like I understood it. This is my hobby. The more I play D&D, the less video games I play, the less time I spend on YouTube, unless I'm watching Dungeons and Dragons stuff. But it's man, it's so satisfying. There's I've talked about this a time or two before, but there's like an ebb and flow that I go through personally in my life, and I call it an egress and an egress. What's the opposite of an egress? Ingress and egress. It's like an in and out, like a breathe in, breathe out. And I'd found that I would like when it comes to entertainment, I would just want to consume stuff. I would want to play games. I would want to watch movies. I would want to watch shows. Just like read books. Just suck up all this content. Then after a while, I would just get really tired of consuming stuff. Like I played Minecraft for hundreds of hours. I don't want to play any Minecraft anymore. I don't want to play any of this anymore. I don't want to watch that. I need to get something out. I need to get something out of me. And so I would draw. I would do pixel art. I've got a little wood shop that I tinker in. I'd get out there and I'd make something, make a table or something like that. And I just need to get something out of me. I'd like write music. I'd play something. I would sing. I would record a thing or two. And then when you create stuff, you kind of get creatively drained. At least I would. And I would need to like consume again. I'd like to need to get stuff. I need to listen to music for more inspiration. I need to watch a movie for story ideas. I need to, just like suck in. And then I'd get full and I'd get tired of that, and then I would have to create again. So it's like this in and out and in and out. And what I've discovered, for me personally, is that with Dungeons and Dragons, there is enough of both of that I can just do it all the time. And it's breathing in and breathing out. It's creative expression. It's storytelling. It's getting all of this stuff out of me. All of this creativity out and into the real world and into the lives of my friends and into the channels and the history books of my friends' minds. We'd build all these shared stories and have all these in-jokes and get it all out. But then I would, like, during that process, like, they're dumping all of this stuff out and I'm just consuming it. I'm just eating it up, all of the stuff that they're doing. But then, like, when it comes to creative stuff, like, there's painting and there's 3D modeling and there's music. Like, I've got so many playlists on Spotify. If you're interested, my channel here is called Wash Pinello. I'm pretty much Wash Pinello everywhere on the internet. Got a bunch of Spotify playlists. If you just search for Wash Pinello, most of them are public. I think I stopped making them public a while ago just out of negligence. But if you're interested, you're welcome to use them. But I love curating playlists and music that will go with certain themes. And I got into map making and like learning cartography. I make I 3D print this stuff, but I don't actually model these. I'd like to learn sculpting models, but I do make terrain as well. I make like houses and castles, and I made an airship, a modular airship that's like, camera's this way. It's like that big. It's like in 4 different pieces. I used that during our campaign when we were in the plane of air. That was a fun one. But there's just like so many different ways of creatively expressing yourself, and it just hits so many buttons. And it's like I could get tired of map making, I could get tired of character creation, and still have something else to do. Like, I could make dungeons, or I could like come up with puzzles, like just sitting down thinking about riddles and puzzles and looking up, character archetypes. Man, delving into the unknowable depths of tvtropes.com, looking for different story tropes and things like that to use in stories. It's just like it encompasses so many creative fields that I could just do it forever. And so it has become my de facto hobby. I one of the reasons that I'm have like purposed myself to paint all of these minis for D&D is because I'm never not going to use them. Like this is an investment of time and money into my hobby, and I'm gonna have these things for decades. And hopefully, like my boys really like D&D, and they've been really getting into it. And my oldest, he's been getting into like actually dungeon mastering, and I'd like to. He knows that he can borrow my minis anytime, and I'd like to eventually leave my minis to him when I'm all dead and gone and whatnot. Sorry, I'm getting into my 40s, so I think about that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a fantastic hobby, one worth getting into. Yeah, man, passing the torch. That's the primary reason of having a torch, is to pass it on. A torch lets you see the way, and then it lets you pass on to the next person so that they can see the way. The family that slays together stays together. I'd really like to make a D&D table one of these days. I have a little riser that I felted on top and have it. It's like 3 by 4 feet, I think. And like I have these big foam inserts that I can just set it down into, so it's like a grass top. It's like all flocked and everything. And then I have another one that's like it's like dungeon tiles, like this. Actually, I'll show you there. Looks like this, but it's bigger. It's like, so I can just like put walls down and build a dungeon out on it. Oops. Hit the mic stand and made a loud noise. I apologize. So yeah, if you want to hang out, learn a thing or two about D&D, might even do something that's not mini painting. The other day I was trying to make character books, but I ran out of extra leather scraps here. I should be getting some tomorrow, but I don't know if I'll have time to stream it. I might do a surprise stream tomorrow. Normally I stream on like the schedule I've set for myself so that I don't do this every night and neglect my family, is Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays are kind of like my for funsies night. It's like whatever I need for my game on Thursday. Not Thursdays, Tuesdays and Saturdays. I have a terrible memory. So yeah, Tuesdays are kind of like my for funsies night. If I need something for my game that I need to paint up real quick or something like that, then I'll do that on Tuesdays. And then Saturdays is just the working on the monster manual. All right. $25 hours. Oof. Yikes. Well, I hope that you have the most beautiful rest that you've had in a very, very long time. And I'd love to have you back. Good night, the gaming fawn. Sweet, sweet dreams. Oh no, I didn't get them all done. See, now I have to make a decision. Now I have to be like, do I just take them like this? Do I stay up late? But I've got work in the morning. What would I need to get these guys' table ready? These ones are done. That one, like, he could use a wash, but he's pretty much done. He could use a wash, but he actually, this guy, if I wash him, he's done. Maybe I can slap a wash on him real quick. Washing's fast. And washing is actually like the most bang for your buck. If you can drop a base coat on somebody, like some minis, and then just do a quick wash, oh man, it adds like so much to it. This guy is done. Yes, so I'm actually not as bad as I thought. I got 4 of these guys done. And that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I'm going to 5. Let's see, that would be 6, 7. I think I'm going to wash these guys. Let's see, he just needs some Seraphim Sepia. Not to be confused with Cherubim Sepia. Sepia. Is it sepia or sepia? I've always said sepia. I'm just gonna do a quick and sloppy wash on these guys. Putting this... Ooh, I got it all over his face. That's not good. Putting this sepia on a like a white, like this bone white, does a really good... Makes like a really nice natural cloth look. Get that out of his eyes. It's too much ponding up in there. There we go. Alright, now some Agrax Earthshade. It's just dark brown. Seraphim Sepia is like a light brown. It lets the light side of the paint show through and gives a mildly brown shadow. Agrax Earthshade is similar, but it casts a darker shadow. And for those of you unfamiliar with washes, essentially what they do is they seep down into the cracks and crevices and simulate a shadow. That's pretty much all it does. One of the things that you're trying to do with painting minis is you're trying to make a big thing look like a small thing. And I've talked about this before, so I apologize if I'm reiterating myself or rambling. But light reacts differently to big things than it does to small things. And so you want your light, like to make your small thing look like a big thing, you need to help it out. You need to paint highlights on and paint shadows. And painting shadows is tricky because shadows are typically in recessed areas, like in between my fingers. Like my fingers on the middle, like the top and in between, are not two different colors. They're darker in between because of little shadows. So we need to make little shadows all over these things. One of the ways we can do that is with a wash. It's a translucent paint. It has dye in it, but it's clear. It's translucent. You can see through it, and light goes through it. And it has a little bit of what's called a surfactant in it, which breaks the surface tension so it doesn't bubble up. If you stick a drop of water on a piece of glass, it's going to turn into a little bubble. If it has that drop of water has a surfactant in it, it will spread out smoother, and it won't have as much of a skin to the top of it. And so that's what this does. So it doesn't bubble up, it slides down into the cracks and crevices And that's where the shadows are going to be. It creates those shadows in between there. You don't want it to pond up too much because that can look weird. It can dry poorly, give you like a little coffee stain ring around the shadow that is not accurate for what shadows look like. But for the most part, you just slather it on and it slides into the crevices, and it's very little work for a lot of return. You get a lot of detail and a lot of really cool shadows. A lot of my minis, I'll say, they look like crap until you put a wash on it. Once you put a wash on it, and then it's like, oh wow, there's all the work that I've been working on. Yep, and it looks like that. So if you look at this guy and his pants compared to this guy and his pants, it's even like the chest plate right there, how it's like seeping into the cracks and you can see the crevices. Not so much. Oh, he doesn't have a cape, so you can't really see the difference there. But that's a really cheap, quick and dirty wash. Normally I spend more time on it. Hey, Commander Root. Alright, we're doing black. This is Null Oil, so we'll go ahead and put that on his cowl. I used to just wash everything in black, and honestly that works pretty good. The only difference is that black is it can be a little cool on warmer colors like browns and oranges, and if it doesn't match with the color, it can kind of make it look dirty. That guy just hasn't been painted all the way. Like, I'm already washing him, but it's like I haven't painted his face or his crossbow. We'll put him towards the end. If I have to substitute in some other minis for this battle, it's not the end of the world. Oh man, I'm getting sloppy. Slathering big drops on there. Big drops. They're just bandits. They've only got like 10 HP. They're not going to last on the table for very long. I think they have more than that. I think technically the stat block for these guys are ruffians, and I think they're exclusively in the Lost Mines of Phandelver book. I think they're like beefed up bandits. They're like CR 1/2 or something like that. Agrax Earthshade next. Thanks for hanging out this whole time, Ice. I really appreciate having you around. It's nice to have a familiar face. I know your time's important. Just want to tell you I appreciate you. I need to play more D&D. One of these days I'm going to run out of stories to tell. Alright. Calling him good. That one's done. It's got a little gloop on his back. Spread that out so it dries a little faster. Alright, so that's 2, 4, 2 over there drying, that's 6, 7. This guy's all painted. I can go ahead and get him, you know, I'm gonna Agrax him. If I can get him painted, that's 7. That's close enough to 8. When they asked how many there were, I think I said around 8. There ends up being 7. Actually, this will be like, knowing my luck, this will be the one time that they do remember. They'll be like, wait a minute, you said there were 8. And I'll be like, ooh, maybe one of them snuck off. Roll a perception check. Doesn't matter what the result is because they're gone. They're gonna roll 25 and be like, oh no, you still don't see them. They're gonna be like, oh dang, it's a big old crazy rogue. Watch your backs, everybody. And I'll be like, nah, it's just because I didn't paint a mini last night. Ha 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 ha. You'll never know the difference. Confession time. One of my favorite things to do as a dungeon master is when they're all deliberating and discussing a plan. It's to just roll some dice behind the table. Behind the dungeon master screen. And just like, I might not even have an idea of what I'm rolling for, but just to remind them that I'm there and that I'm listening. Just roll some dice. Most times when I do roll dice behind the table while they're doing stuff is like, I'm thinking like, hey, it's been a while, you know, there's probably some monsters roaming around. Let's see if they get ambushed by a monster, or let's see if there's something in the area. And I'll just roll a d20. I'm like, if it's high, if it's like super high, something's gonna show up. I try to give some significance to it, you know, and not so that's not like just stupid random. Yeah, having your players paranoid is kind of dangerous, because then when you want them to do something and you're trying to direct them, then it takes them 20 minutes to get there because they're checking every bolt on the door to make sure that the bolts aren't mimics, because the door isn't a mimic. So you kind of got to ride that line a little bit, but it's just too fun. It's just too fun to roll something with a straight dead stare, straight face, just like clink, 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 and then they all turn at you and they're like, what's going on? You're just like, what? You guys are talking. And then the best part is when they give you ideas, and when they start to put things together that you never even thought of, and you just say, yeah, you're right, you figured it out. So they were they were in they were in Cragmaw Cave, and they're like supposed to be like finding Sildar Hallwinter, this old soldier, and they're trying to find Gundren Rockseeker because they've been like drug off by these goblins. So they're in this cave and they're looking around and they're like, you know, oh man, what's going on? There's like, they're being paranoid and like sneaking here and there. And I stopped them for a second because they're new players. And I was like, just so that you guys know, this isn't Final Fantasy. This isn't a JRPG where time is going to stop while you guys make plans. Like, you're welcome to take as much time as you want to make plans and do your stuff and decide your best course of action, but understand that time is running. They were like, can we stop and take a nap? Like, we just, like, the warlock was like, I just used my spells. Can I stop and take, an hour rest? I was like, yeah, you can, but understand that hour is going to go past. Like, you guys could just hightail it back to town, drop all these supplies off, get your gold, gear up, and come back out here more prepared. But you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, stuff is gonna happen while you're gone. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, we're gonna go in. We're gonna go in. So they go in, and then they find, they're like killing goblins and being silly, goofy players and all that jazz. And to try to, like, there was a perception check that I made. There was like a fork in the road, and I was like, make a perception check to see if you can hear, what's down one way, what's down the other. And so, like, one way I told them smells like goblins and like cooking and stuff like that, and you can also hear some muffled cries and stuff from the, like, like somebody tied up. And the other way, they heard like rushing water and like some goblins arguing or whatever. And so they were like just going and going and going and going. And I told them that, like, they finally found the guy that was tied up, and I told them that he was beat to heck. Like, he was, because the book says Solar has 1 hit point left, and the goblin is ready to drop him off a cliff as an intimidation factor thing or whatever, so if they, to make them bargain, because that's fun according to the book. And so I was describing him that he was just like beat to heck and probably only had 1 hit point left. Like, if he fell off that cliff, he was probably gonna die. And they were like, "Oh no, it's because we took too long." And I was like, yes, it's because you took too long. No, that's what the book said. The book was just like, he's got 1 hit point. But they were like, "Oh no, we took." I was just like, yeah, told ya. Shit, no lollygag. It was great. it was so fun. So, like, I've never done it before, but I've heard that, like, something that dungeon masters will do to troll their players is that they'll put them in a room in a dungeon. They'll get them into a place, and there's like a puzzle, and there's like a door that needs to be opened, and they have to do a thing to open the door. And so what they do is they just don't design the puzzle. The dungeon master has no idea how the door opens, and the players just try stuff, and you just keep burning spell slots and trying things, and then till they do something that the dungeon master seems like, oh, that's plausible. Like, yeah, it opens up. You got it, guys. You figured it out. I want to try it so bad, but I haven't done it yet because it sounds amazing. I want him to, like, I don't know, use prestidigitation to, like, conjure 100 hot dogs and beat the door with 100 hot dogs, and that ends up opening it. I just want that to happen so bad. It's on my bucket list. Yeah, I know, right? It was fantastic. All right, well, we got 6 of them. Actually, we got 7 of them. This guy over here, he's drying. Nice. So I might be able to get these 2 guys painted. It's just their faces and their crossbows. But I think that's a pretty good little party. You got 3 crossbow dudes, a guy with a hammer, a longbow, dagger, and spellcaster. I think that's good. Not as much as I'd hoped for, but take what you can get. Alright, Ice. I'm going to bed. Thank you so much for hanging out. I might do a surprise stream tomorrow. I don't know. I'm going to try and get some leather and do that character book. And but most of it's going to be session prep for the game on Thursday. So I might be on. If you have notifications turned on, that might help. But I don't really ping this on social media. Would you be interested in that? Like, do you have notifications turned on, or would you be interested in me just like tweeting, "Hey, I'm gonna stream tonight" or something like that? If I do like a surprise stream that's not on Tuesdays or Saturdays. Because it wouldn't be hard to do, I'm just not really active on social media. Okay. I'll just do that for now. But I might do that tomorrow. Alright. Thanks again, and y'all be good. We'll see you next time.